No kidding. Visiting southern Indiana and central Illinois gave me the opportunity to follow my newfound interest for American history by visiting the boyhood home of Abraham Lincoln, and then to follow his life by visiting Springfield, which is where he lived as an adult and subsequently became our 16th president. I'll end this segment of my journey at the Gateway Arch National Park in St. Louis, Missouri. In episode 8, I observed that President Bill Clinton came from very humble beginnings. Well, at least Bill Clinton had electricity and running water. The Lincoln Boyhood National Memorial in southern Indiana is part of the National Park System and contains a small visitor center and walking trails to take you to the site of Lincoln's boyhood home. He lived here between the ages of 7 and 21. The remains of his family's one-room log cabin were excavated here, and a bronze sculpture was put in place to mark the footprint of the house. What I learned here that I didn't know before is that Lincoln's mother died in this home when he was just 9 years old. And as his life continued, this man would become well acquainted with grief. I started to gain a real appreciation for how much. Moving on to Springfield, I found the Illinois State Fairgrounds contains a large campground that can accommodate over 300 RVs with water and power for just $20 a night. Now, typically this is the off season, and the manager here said the grounds are usually muddy and soggy, foggy, damp. He used all those words. But the weather this week has been in the mid-70s and dry. So there might have been maybe 20 campers here. It was great. The State Fair Campground was within just a couple of miles of 3 important Lincoln sites in Springfield. Visiting these sites made for a full day. His tomb, his home, and the museum. I started my tour at his tomb. Shortly after I arrived there, I noticed the site filling up with visitors in period garb. I vaguely remembered a trip I made to the site of President Lincoln's assassination at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Notice the date? I just happened to be here on April 15th, the date of his death. After viewing his tomb, I decided to stay around a while and pay my respects. So this is Lincoln's house in Springfield. This is the house he lived in before he went to the White House. In the street, in the neighborhood, and they've preserved the entire neighborhood here. A couple of these houses you can actually go inside.
Now, Lincoln moved into this house in 1844. He bought it for a grand total of $1,500. And when he did move in, a couple differences, right? The second floor that we see today, that was actually not there when they bought the home. This was just a cottage, a one-story house with one bedroom. It would have looked a lot more like that house behind you on the other corner there. That was not a problem at first. The Lincolns had only one son when they moved in here, so they could fit into one bedroom, just Abe, Mary, and Robert, who was less than a year old. But as the years went by, Robert got older, and the Lincolns had 3 more boys born in this home. One bedroom for everybody was not enough, so that second floor was added on top in 1856, 12 years after they moved in. So keep that in mind. Second floor is much newer. Upstairs you'll see higher ceilings and bigger rooms. That shows how their status was growing over time, building to the point that Lincoln runs for president in 1860, and they left here for the White House.
The Lincoln home has been wonderfully preserved and contains the original furniture and artifacts owned by Abraham Lincoln and his family. The Visitor Center gives a wonderful orientation to his life here, including becoming a lawyer, getting married, and having the funeral for his 3-year-old son Eddie right here in this room. It's said that he wrote his inaugural address from this desk right here. I ended the day at the Lincoln Museum, which was really just marvelously done. The museum covered his entire life and had interactive 3D displays and a couple of really high-tech shows that used holography and other visual and physical effects to tell his story. Too bad I couldn't record those for you. You learn a lot here because the displays are so engaging. I learned about his presidential campaign and how he won the election on an anti-slavery platform. There was like this mock newsroom as if there was TV coverage of the 1860 campaign, starring Tim Russert.
The Republican campaign has largely bypassed the South in the belief that if Lincoln carries enough northern states, he can win in the Electoral College and take the White House without a single Southern vote.
President Lincoln resolved to not fire the first shot of the Civil War. Remember my visit to Fort Sumter in episode 10? There were so many perspectives on slavery. I don't know how Lincoln could have ever dreamed to keep this country together. Even his cabinet couldn't agree on how to proceed on the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, and the handling of the Civil War. Back at Lincoln's tomb earlier today, I noticed he lost one of his sons, Willie, during his presidency. Now, Mary actually lost 3 of her 4 sons and her husband by 1871. The museum depicted the loss of Willie and said that typhoid was the cause. You can only imagine the impact on Abraham and Mary to lose a second son. His untimely death was captured in this museum with a recreation of Ford's Theater and what it was like when his remains lay in state in Washington, D.C. before being returned via railroad to Springfield. These presidential portraits really show the impact of the burdens he bore as president, as husband, and as a father.
There's the arch. I have not seen that before in my life, so this is a first. I'm approaching St. Louis from the east. I'm in Illinois currently.
Five years ago, Gateway Arch National Park in St. Louis underwent a $380 million renovation, and it really shows. I was actually relieved to see airport-like security screening here. I mean, we are going up into a 630-foot high structure, celebrating American expansion to the west. The updated and expanded museum is really well done with sections on local and national history. Personally, I was glad to see a balanced review of American history when it came to the treatment of Native and African Americans. This museum is expansive, and it took me about 2 to 3 hours to see everything. But of course, I am also one of those irritating people who goes to the museum and has to read everything. Okay, here's one of the questions the museum answered for me. How exactly do the elevators work that take you to the top of the arch? Okay, think less of a traditional elevator and more of a train. Visitors sit inside these 5-person pods that are connected together end to end, and then you're hoisted as a train up to the summit of the arch. So let's go up together. I'll start by just giving you a PSA like I usually do by telling you to make sure to get your tickets ahead of time if you want to take this very popular ride, because typically they're sold out if you just walk up without a ticket. I was on one of the first tours up on the day I was here, so was lucky enough to have a pod all to myself. The ride up takes about 4 minutes, and there is a window to see outside the pod, but all you can see is the inside of the arch cavity. I just happened to be here on a beautiful, cloudless spring day. My weather luck on this trip has been great so far. Just 48 hours prior to my visit, I was told that residents in the RV park where I'm staying were in the tornado shelter. In order to maintain good crowd control, each visitor has 10 minutes at the top. It wasn't too crowded at all, so you get plenty of time to just look out the windows, snap pictures, and enjoy the beautiful, beautiful views. Of course, who knows when I'll ever be back here again, so I purchased the full meal deal, including the trip to the top of the arch, the park movie detailing the construction of the monument, and the riverboat tour.
Stainless steel and complete in October 1965. It is 630 feet high, 630 feet wide. There's an observation deck at the top of a 30-mile view of our state area. In recent years, a $380 million innovation to Gateway Arch grounds and surrounding areas in downtown St. Louis completely transformed the Gateway Arch experience. The Museum of the Basic Arch has also undergone a dramatic renovation to provide exciting experience that takes visitors on a journey through time throughout St. Louis's history. reopened to the public in July of 2018.
So this has been an amazing visit to a beautiful park, Gateway Arch National Park in St. Louis, Missouri. I've had a beautiful visit here, got to go up in the arch. I got to go for a riverboat cruise, and the museum is just really well done. So I'm gonna say farewell now to National Park number 48 and get on my way to National Park number 49, New River Gorge. So we will see you there.